Hello and welcome back to the Keep Right On podcast. I'm Alex Dicken and I'm joined by my usual co-host and colleague Brian Dick to look over Birmingham City's first three Christmas fixtures. Christmas is probably a little bit over now, to be fair, and moving into the new year. We hope you all had a good Christmas. Brian, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Yeah, I've just woken up from yesterday's match, so yeah, all good. But let's not carp too much. One draw after 8 wins. We probably shouldn't be too downbeat, or indeed downbeat at all, should we?
No, it's been a little bit of a forgetful Christmas, though, hasn't it? I think the Burton game. I think Richard Wilford said to me after that game, we'll have forgotten this game by the time we get home. And it felt like Blackpool, from a Blues perspective at least, was a little bit worse. So, yeah, go on, Brian. Give us your reflections on a 90 minutes of a ball draw at St Andrews. Pretty similar to how we ended the last year, wasn't it, as well?
It was a ball draw. Yeah, in some ways, yes. I'm just having flashbacks there to last year, the 0-0 draw with Bristol City and Wayne Rooney coming into the press room afterwards and saying, well, you all wanted a clean sheet. I gave you one. Yeah, I'm going to pay Blackpool some credit because I think they put in the best team performance, implemented the best game plan that I've seen at St Andrews so far this season. It was quite funny. We were sort of pre-match kicking around the idea that maybe preparation and game planning wasn't Steve Bruce's forte. Certainly when he was at West Brom. But I have to say, yesterday, whoever came up with the game plan, presumably Bruce, let's give him the credit. They implemented it perfectly, and they didn't just frustrate Blues, which a lot of teams have done. They actually put them under a bit of danger as well, didn't they? And posed a bit of threat. So, yeah, my big takeaway, I suppose, was really quite impressed with Blackpool.
Yeah, I think when you looked at the Blackpool team sheet and saw the players they had, they've got quite a decent side. I think they've got a lot of players who played in the Championship, a lot of players who played high-end League One. And I thought the front two in particular are a bit of a handful for Blues centre-backs. Ashley Fletcher and Carl Joseph, they both had a very good chance first half. Joseph had another one second half that he hit the post with. So they had the better chances. Maybe it was just a game too far for Blues. Having said that, Chris Davies did make 6 changes, so you would have expected a little bit of freshness to the team. But it just didn't happen. It was probably one of the poorer performances going forward I think we've seen this season. But they were still, what they have at the moment is they are relatively solid at the back. They don't give that many chances away. They do keep a lot of clean sheets. That's 4 in a row in the league. And I think from the moment Ben Davies came on with the clean sheet record with him at the back, I think we knew it was always going to be a clean sheet, and Blues were at least going to get something out of the game.
Yeah, I think from the time Joseph hit the inside of the post, Blues were quite lucky there. As you say, there seemed to be a sort of a stability to Blues, and we'll come on to their defensive record because, without spoiling it too much, that does seem to be who they are, doesn't it? That does seem to be the way they're going to go about their business in terms of winning the League One title. Not necessarily the cavalier, all singing, all dancing, attacking force. Maybe they are going to grind it out, and 1-0 and 2-0 to the Blues is going to be the refrain of the season. But yeah, you made the point about freshening it up. I think potentially with some freshness came a little bit of loss of cohesion, maybe, or just a bit of fluency or fluidity. Yeah, we'll come on to the individuals. I think Chris Davies had to freshen it up. Could he have freshened it up against Burton? Maybe, but then obviously, the loading and the training loads are different, aren't they, a game ago? So in terms of freshness, they've got access to way more data than we have. I wonder, just to pick an example, obviously he played Mark Leonard alongside Iwata and rested Beck against Burton. I wonder if he might have played Leonard and rested Iwata against Blackpool, and then they've each played 2 of the 3 or started 2 of the 3 games. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to be massively critical, and I think being overly critical of any individuals isn't massively helpful either.
Yeah, and Watts is a very interesting one because maybe he is just immune from fatigue, and we'll play all 3 games and finish 90 minutes in each of them. Because given the magnitude of the Stockport game, I'd presume he would start that one because that's a very big game away from home against a team that is in the playoffs currently. So you'd presume it's going to be the normal midfield of Beck and Iwata. Maybe Leonard Getting as well. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But yeah, he's a bit of a rare case. I think he's probably going to play the whole way through, I'd imagine, at this point. The substitutions, Brian. I mean, it was a very, very busy substitution period for the first 58 minutes, wasn't it? Blues made all 5 changes inside 58. Obviously, 2 enforced in the first half with Lee Buchanan getting injured very early on. We hope his injury isn't as bad as first feared, because it looked quite a nasty one. Obviously, a shame for him after only just coming back from 5 or 6 months out with a calf problem as well. So hopefully that knee injury isn't too bad. And then Emil Hansen goes off with another muscular issue just before half time. So 2 changes before the break. And then obviously Chris Davies can only stop the game once more, because you're allowed to stop the game at 3 points. So he used another change at half time, because that doesn't count towards his stoppages. So he brings on Jay Stansfield. And then he makes the 2 more with Davies and Leonard coming on in the 58th minute. The sub that's been the most contentious, I think, with fans has been the decision to bring Luke Harris on for Hansen just before half time, because there were 3 options, weren't there? You know, you've got Harris, who for me would have been the third choice. Then you've got Jay Stansfield, who's probably the number 1 choice, and then Yokoyama, who is probably the natural replacement for Hansen if you want to keep the width on that left side. Obviously, Yokoyama's barely had a look in the league, so it wasn't really a massive surprise to me that he didn't come on. But given the way Blues wanted that left winger to play, it was quite a surprise to me that Harris came on, because he isn't the natural winger, is he? And I don't think he played on the left before for Blues this season, had he? He played on the right a little bit.
Played on the right,
right winger, but not on the left. Mostly as a 10, obviously.
Yeah, you're right. I think I'd have been tempted to bring Stansfield on. I know they were probably trying to manage minutes. What minute was it?
It was 45, and obviously 45 minutes by the time.
Literally, yeah. I think Stansfield is the obvious one. Have Blues played with May, Stansfield, and Dykes on the pitch at the same time?
I think only when they were very desperate for an equaliser at Shrewsbury.
Right. Okay. I mean, people are saying that. Oh, obviously the like for like change is Yokoyama. And you asked him a question in the press conference, didn't you, about that choice to bring Harris over Yokoyama? And it feels a bit like it's a stock answer whenever you ask about Yokoyama. Now he's adapting to the country. You know, he's very young. He's got some way to go. He'll be a big player some way down into the season. To which the follow up is, well, how's he going to learn to play football if he's not playing football in England? You know, I think there's more to it, isn't there, than Chris Davies is admitting. I mean, publicly, obviously, you know, he'll be giving his feedback and assessment of Ayumu where he needs to improve. I just wonder if when he left the back door open against Northampton, it might even have been his last home performance or his last appearance off the bench at home, when I think Bielik had to clear a shot off the line, didn't he? I wonder if that is just that sort of sits large or looms large in Chris Davies's mind when it comes to Yokoyama. But you gain so much more going past a centre back, going past a full back, don't you? You know, Yokoyama can go both ways. If Blues have got the ball 70% of the time, then you know that only leaves 30% of the time to worry about who's doing what tracking. That's clearly massively simplistic, and it'd probably make all analysts' hair curl just hearing me come up with something fairly facile like that. But to me, Yokoyama will only learn by playing. I thought it was a tough gig for Harris. And as you say, he's the third choice. I mean, if you're not going to bring Stansfield on, then surely it's Yokoyama. And I don't want to get down on Luke Harris, because I think we have to remember that he's only 19 and in his second season of first team of sort of senior football as well, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. On Yokoyama, I mean, he's only played 134 minutes of league football. Like you mentioned, that kind of inability to track his runner against Northampton probably does loom large in Chris Davies' mind, because I do remember after that, Davies going absolutely ballistic on the touchline at him. And he obviously played, I think it was maybe a minute against Shrewsbury. That was his last league league appearance, and he hasn't played in the league since. He's barely been in a league squad since, but he did play against Exeter in the EFL Trophy and did quite well. You know, he created the winning goal, and you know there wasn't anything that night at Exeter to make me think, oh, Yokoyama can't play in League One or shouldn't be considered for League One games for the next month, and that's kind of the way it's been. And he potentially could be the only fit winger going into the game at Stockport, but do you expect him to start? Probably not, because he hasn't started a League One game yet. So, like you say, but I think with him, he's probably not going to learn without the opportunities to play. And if he's not going to play, you know, that much football in the second half of the season, I'd be in favour of him going out on loan, to be honest, to another League One side, because they'd be takers. You know, whether the language barrier is too much of an issue to get past at the moment, I'm not too sure. And maybe Blues would like to keep him in house and develop him that way. But I think, you know, he's a 22-year-old player. He's played a lot of football in Japan already. If he needs to learn how to play in England, then why not send him to a mid-table League One side who aren't going to be playing with that much risk in the second half of the season, and give him a chance to get, you know, 1,000 minutes under his belt, rather than stay here, wait for all the injured wingers to get fit again and bump him even further down the pecking order. Yeah,
you wonder what the future looks like, don't you? If he's not playing in the relative sort of less lower pressure periods in League One, you know, off the bench when Blues are 2-0 up or something like that. What's the plan to play him in the Championship? You know, when it's only going to be harder. There's enough raw attributes, and for me, you know, just think that he's worth a place on the bench every match. But obviously, what we don't see, we're only seeing a 10% of the picture, aren't we? Davis sees what he sees, you know, in training, you know, 5 days a week and in matches. So, yeah, I don't know where Yokoyama's going at the moment, which is frustrating because he's talented, and in a side that lacks pace. You made that point, and I saw a couple of other people say it on Twitter. There's no flyer on in that team. Yokoyama would seem a bit of an antidote to some of the shortcomings we're seeing, in my mind.
Yeah, and Scott Wright was that player before he got injured, wasn't he? He'd kind of come off the bench and make that impact by quickening things up and just having the ability to run at people. Obviously, in a very different way. Wright was doing it in more central areas than Yokoyama would, but they do lack pace, in my opinion, going forward. You know, none of the forwards, even down to Keshi Anderson, he's not particularly quick. I think Yokoyama, he's probably the fastest player Blues have got when Yokoyama and Wright aren't around in that forward areas. So yeah, it would be nice to have someone who can go past someone occasionally and do something a little bit different. But again, I think you've seen if he doesn't fit into the system, he's not going to play, is he? So that's the reason. Maybe Chris Davies doesn't quite trust him yet. That's kind of, you know, based on the evidence that we've got in front of us, that's probably kind of what you have to assume.
To answer my own question a little bit, you know, with 9 subs in the Championship, there's a case for having Yokoyama and Djukovic on the bench every game next season, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know, obviously the substitutions are restricted in League One, or the numbers of substitutes, are restricted in League One. You know, there is a bit of a bun fight, and there's always 1 or 2, you know, when everyone's fit, potentially 3 or 4 senior players going to miss out on a match day squad because of the limited numbers in League One. So maybe it will be, there is if and when Blues are in the Championship, there is sort of more of an avenue to get minutes next season. But yeah, just I feel for him. I just want to see more of him. But you know, I saw somebody else on Twitter say, you know, with Blues are top of the league, and we're worried about some lad that's not getting enough minutes, and you know, because of the perceived shortcomings in attack, and we'll come on to what Blues' identity is, and I don't think they are, or they will be at any stage this season now, this free-flowing attacking football team. So yeah, maybe Yokoyama is a bit of a poster boy for, try him, throw him in. But there's actually not anything really wrong with the current Blues team. You know, we need to put this 0-0 draw in a packed festive fixture schedule in context a little bit.
Yeah, without wanting to go off on a tangent again, you make a good point about the 9 subs and Lukas Djukovic as well, because I think one thing I've noticed recently is when teams have sat in a low block and Blues have been forced to go wide and put crosses in, none of their strikers particularly throw themselves at the ball. Obviously, Dykes has got the physical presence Djukovic has got, but doesn't use it in the same way. Djukovic still, for me, is the best aerial option in that, up front for Blues. But, when you've got the choice of Dykes or Djukovic, and you might have to use one for 45 minutes or even an hour. Dykes has been starting games recently. Chris Davies probably going to be on the side of Dykes at the moment, isn't he? So that's why Djukovic has been missing out on squads. But it would, when there is 9 subs, be good to have Djukovic as that option for the final 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, if you do want to be more direct and get crosses it, because he will at least tap the ball.
Yeah, one of the frustrating things yesterday was I thought they didn't put enough crosses in or crosses in early enough. It didn't help when Laird came on and was having to play on the left, and he's not going to go outside a man and cross with his left foot, I don't think. So he sort of checks back into Peck, and I'm not sure Peck puts the ball in early enough for my liking. Maybe the players have been told only to cross from certain positions on the pitch or in certain situations when there's teammates in certain areas of the penalty box, and that's what's stopping the ball going in. But yeah, it all clunked a little bit in the attacking third yesterday.
Brian, what are your thoughts on, there was some boos at the final whistle. What are your thoughts on that? 8 wins in a row and then obviously ending with a flat 0-0 draw. There were a few boos. I think I don't agree with it, but I can understand why there's a little bit of discontent with the way Blues are with what's happening at the moment, because everyone wants to see Blues kind of playing this swashbuckling style of football and steamrolling some of these teams because of the money they've spent and the players they've got. And that hasn't quite been happening. It's been a little bit more controlled. And probably I'd say it's not been what League One has not quite been what Blues fans thought it was going to be. I don't think the wins tally, yes, but the way in which it's been done, I don't think is what they expected.
Yeah, well, disappointment and frustration, that lies in the space between expectation and reality, doesn't it? And if people, and maybe we were guilty of this, maybe we were guilty of seeing Blues pay 15 million for Jay Stansfield and bring in Willemsen and Alfie May, and we expected them to be scoring bundle of goals, and we shaped that expectation. Maybe I think it was potentially easy to do that. They obviously spent money on Hansen as well and Yokoyama, and they brought in all these attacking talents. So you kind of think that they're going to score buckets of goals here, and Alfie and Jay are probably going to get 20 each. It's the point you made about being League One. League One has been what we've expected it from the point of view of results, if not performances. So the difference there is, comes in terms of style. And as I said, we'll come on to just how good defensively Blues are in a sec. People have got, you and I are probably the least qualified people in the stadium to comment on whether people have been booing or not, because we haven't paid to get in.
True.
We are in a very fortunate position where we can go and watch Blues and get to write about it. If you've paid your money and you're expecting a swashbuckling Cavalier 4-0 victory and you're not getting it, then go you do you sort of thing. But it's worth pointing out they've just won 8 straight, and they are top of the league with games in hand, and they're going to break 100 points if it carries on like this. And other teams are dropping points as well. It's not just Blues. Wickham lost yesterday. Wrexham have had the odd wobble. They do have a habit of scoring late goals, and for me, I know you said yesterday you probably expect Huddersfield to come through the pack and join Blues. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Wrexham do, because I think they have got late goals in them. So if you want to boo. There wasn't that many, was there?
No, there wasn't loads. It was just surprising to hear it, I suppose, a little bit. But like you say, Brian, people are entitled when they've paid their money to voice their opinions.
There's only so frustrated you can be when you're top of the league, though, isn't there? And the frustration lies in the style, I guess. Maybe.
I think so. Yeah. Have Blackpool set the blueprint? I mean, because I'll be honest, after Burton Albion and Boxing, I was a little bit bored. You know, and that's probably me being a little bit entitled. You know, it's kind of, I think there's like 3 or 4 2-0 home wins in a row, and I think 3 of them, apart from Stockport, who did okay second half and gave Blues a few issues. And to be fair, had a couple of decent chances first half in that game at St Andrews, but the others haven't really tried to beat Blues. It's almost been like a case of keeping the score down and not having any ambition in the game. And Burton Albion, you know, seemed quite happy to get out of there with a 2-0 defeat and have their goal difference not completely battered. Whereas Blackpool, it was refreshing in a way to see a team come St Andrews and take Blues on. You know, I asked Steve Bruce afterwards, you know, whether he thinks there's a bit of a fear factor around League One, and he said he can kind of understand why teams don't come here because of the players Blues have gotten through fear of getting absolutely walloped. And I think we can probably understand that. I just think I wish teams showed a little bit more ambition, not for you know, a point of me wanting to write about 5-0 Blues victories every week at St Andrews, because, you know, teams are going to set up however which way they choose, but it has felt like teams are just coming to keep scores down and trying to get out of there. And a lot of managers said the same thing about we try to stay in the game and, you know, get a late goal and stuff. I think a lot of that has come through Blues mistakes as well, the chances they've conceded. So it's felt like teams have been waiting for a mistake rather than actually showing invention and creativity themselves to create a chance.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? You know, you'd. I think you'd be mad if you were Burton and you came and made the pitch big, and you know expected anything other than someone like Stansfield to score at least twice, and you know the quality of May and Willemsen to really make an impact in the final third. Have Blackpool set a template? That's Chris Davis's word, isn't it? Template. I think more of a template is what Northampton and Burton did. I think Blackpool will prove to be something of an outlier. I was really impressed with Ashley Fletcher yesterday. I thought he gave Bielik some really difficult moments, and not every League One side is going to have someone of the pedigree of Ashley Fletcher. You know, I know he doesn't score many goals, but he was a real focal point and aerial target for Blues yesterday, for Blackpool yesterday. So I don't know that that's easily replicated. Steve Bruce is very much a 4-4-2 man, isn't he? Blues. We saw that during his time with Blues. We saw it with Albion, and at times it's looked a little bit outdated. But yesterday, you know, they were on the front foot and they came at Blues and they got at them. And as I said at the start, you know, they probably deserve to win. So no, I don't think many clubs will look at what Blackpool did and go, "Oh, we'll try and do that," because I'm not sure they've got the components that Blackpool had or the understanding of the system that Steve Bruce has had over all those years.
Yeah, you've got other players Blackpool have got as well, and not many League One teams have got that kind of quality, have they? So yeah, I expect it'll be more of Burton and Northampton, like you say, Brian. You have put down a bit on Blues defence on the running order. Do you want to run us through it?
Yeah, I've just noticed a massive spelling mistake as well. Who are Birmingham City? So sort of hinted at it a little bit earlier. They're clearly, we're halfway through the season. They are not this cavalier attacking machine that is going to, you know, score 5 goals a game. I think they are not risk averse. I think that's slightly unfair, but I think they manage risk very, very well. It's kind of built on the philosophy that if they have the ball for 65% of the time, that should reduce by a lot of percent the amount of chances and goals that are going to be scored against them. And for me, the stats now are actually quite revealing. If you're not into expected goals, you know, feel free to pick something up and lob it at the screen, or you know, take your earphones out. But just going to talk about the expected goals or the expected goals against, which is where I think is quite instructive for us to a little bit of insight into what Chris Davis's Blues are. The Blues have got the best expected goals against in the league. So, you know, just for those who maybe not that au fait with expected goals, it's kind of a calculation of how many chances are coming and the quality of those chances. Obviously, you know, if the ball lands at a striker's feet and he's 6 yards out, it's a better chance of scoring a goal than if it's a something from 25 yards out and a pot shot. So according to the stats, Blues should have conceded 16.37 goals this season. They've actually only conceded 14. So that 16.37 is the best in English football. Leeds are the best in the Championship with 17.78. Walsall, who are runaway leaders in League Two, are the best in League Two with 19.46. And it's not massively relevant, but I'll do the Premier League one anyway. Arsenal are 17.77 expected goals against, but they've only played 18 games. So Blues are, can we say from that Blues are effectively, a defence first team? It's have the ball, not to concede. Potentially we can, just to sort of throw a few more stats in there. They've allowed the fewest shots have got on goal, 152 in League One. The next best is Stockport, who they play on Wednesday, with 183. So that's 30 fewer shots over the course of half a season. And obviously they have the best the best goals against record, only 14 goals against. Wigan and Wrexham have got 16. They're the next best two. So I'll put to you, Alex Dicken, that Chris Davis's Birmingham City, they have the ball a lot, but they have the ball a lot to manage risks and not concede goals.
I think, do you remember his first interview as Blues manager?
Go on.
And he called himself a pragmatist, didn't he? So I think there is a lot of managing risk in the way that Blues play. If you see the way they set up, even it's a 4-2-3-1, but it becomes a 3-4-1-2 or a 3-4-3 in possession, doesn't it? Depending on who's there.
Yeah.
With inverted wingers, or one inverted winger and one number 10. And there's always three centre backs. And since that defeat at Shrewsbury, he's probably become a little bit more defensively minded because he's put an extra centre back in there, taken an attacking fullback out in Ethan Laird, and had most of the time it's been Alex Cochrane who's been told to go a little bit further forward on the left-hand side. So it's probably become a little bit more defensively minded with three centre-backs of Bielik, Davies and Clara. And, the results have been defensive solidity, hasn't it, really? They've kept, I think, 4 clean sheets in a row in League One. They've now kept 12 in all competitions this season, and they only kept one of those, I think, or 2 of those by... when was it they played Rotherham? And towards the end of September, 21st September. So that was their first clean sheet in League One, the 21st September. And they've now kept 10, I think, in League One. So they are clearly, a don't concede first team. And it's kind of bringing them results, isn't it? I think 2 really simple ideas in football. If the opponent hasn't got the ball, they can't score. And if you don't concede, you can't lose. And Blues have pretty much mastered those 2 this season, haven't they? They have the ball pretty much all the time. Against Burton, it was 80%. A lot of those passes aren't particularly dangerous ones in the final third of the opponent. A lot of them are just kind of around at the back, making sure they keep possession. The amount of times Emil Hansen has gone down the left wing this season, instead of actually taking on his man, he's turned back inside and played a pass backwards. The amount of times Awata has just bumped a quick pass back to Christian Bielik or Christoph Clara to keep possession. A lot of the passes, Steve Bruce mentioned that Blues had 800 passes against Burton. I guarantee 650 of them were probably in their own defensive third or in the middle third of the pitch. Where there is very, very little risk, especially against a team like Burton who isn't pressing you greatly. So I think they're a team that manages games really well. They're a team that is very difficult to peg back once they're ahead because they have all the ball and can pick you off in spaces if you let them. But like you say, Brian, I don't think they are this swashbuckling, possession-based goal-scoring machine that maybe we thought they were going to be. Particularly in League One, I wouldn't have expected them to do that in the Championship because there are a lot when Blues do go up next season or this season and play next season in the Championship. There are going to be a number of teams that are like them, with a number of teams that have got similar level budgets and similar quality of players. So it's not going to be like it has been this season, where Blues are very comfortable and controlled, there is going to be probably a lot more risk, because when you make mistakes, as Blues have done at the back this season at times, they're going to concede goals because the quality of the finishing will be much better. But yeah, that's probably a very long-winded way of agreeing with you. I don't think Blues are massively attack-minded. I think they're built on a solid defence, and it's probably just a little bit more entertaining than, a little bit more entertaining because they have a lot of the ball and do have a lot of shots compared to their opponent. But there has been one thing this season: a lot of the shots they have, they don't create enormous amounts of chances in games. There haven't been many games this season where I thought, oh, that could have been a 5-0. Probably, I think back to Huddersfield, actually, when it only ended 1-0. That was probably the game where I thought Blues created the most clear-cut chances. And I'm guessing their XG statistic for that game might be higher than a lot of the other games they've had this season. But there haven't been many games where I thought Blues could score 3 or 4 goals this season. Maybe just that one and a couple of others. Rotherham away, they were a very good first half. But even then, they stepped off it a little second half and managed the game. So there has been a large element of managing football matches this season. And I suppose that's how you get through a season, by being a winning machine.
And the next question to take that, or to take it on a bit further, does it matter if this Blues team, have 100 points and win the League One title by 10 points in the way that Steve Bruce thinks they will?
He thought 15-20.
Yeah, will it? He did. Yeah, will it matter? Maybe they won't be loved as as Barry Fry's Cavaliers, but it's professional, it's sensible, it's logical, it's working. The priorities 1 through 10 were getting back into the Championship, weren't they? And Blues are doing that. And I wonder. I would love to have known what if Chris Davis heard the few boos that there were yesterday, and B, what he thought of them. It'd be really interesting, because he's fulfilling the brief, isn't he? Maybe the expectation is he's been given the keys to the castle, or whatever the right metaphor is, and he's got all these attacking riches at his disposal, and Blues are, inverted commas, only managing risk and winning by 1 or 2-0. But it doesn't really matter when we look back, hopefully in 6 months' time, and they're back in the Championship. It won't matter.
No, I agree.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, be interesting if you have a comment about that, or some thoughts on that, on the your stylistic expectations. Please do leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Be interesting to know your thoughts. Which brings us to the state of play in League One. Go on, Alex, run us through that.
Yeah, so Blues, although they didn't beat Blackpool, they did actually kind of extend their lead in League One, because Wycombe lost at Charlton. So they are now 2 points clear of Wycombe with a game in hand. So hopefully that will become 5. And they are Wrexham, because they won, jumped into second, but Blues are 1 point clear of them with 2 games in hand. So again, that could become 7, couldn't it, quite easily, given the way Blues have been this season. Huddersfield down in 4th, having played a game more than Blues and 6 points behind them. So, it has been a really, really good December for Blues. Let's not forget that. To win all but 1 game is pretty phenomenal at this time of year when there are so many games. And if they can get another 6 points against Stockport and Wigan next year, then yeah, they'll go a long way to cementing their place at the top of the league and being comfortable and building up a little bit of a gap in January. So I think Blues are on track. I don't think Wycombe have been extraordinary in the first half of the season. I don't think anyone expected another team to kind of keep pace with Blues like they have. Wrexham have been, equally good, really, to have 48 points from 23 games. And Huddersfield have come on really strong since they lost to St Andrews. But, Blues are probably about where we expect them to be. They're tracking, I think, Ben from Blues Breakdown put something on Twitter after the Burton Albion game, saying Blues are tracking for 110 points. That'd be an EFL and League One record. So, they're on track.
That will have dipped a little bit after yesterday, but yeah,
exactly,
absolutely, yeah, I saw that as well. It was an interesting piece of research by Ben, and just looking at that league table that you've put up, We've got a top four, probably, haven't we? Now,
Yeah.
Birmingham, Blues, Wrexham, Wickham, and Huddersfield. Blues have scored more goals than Wrexham and Huddersfield. So, let's put that in context as well.
Yeah, only just, to be fair. Yeah, Wickham,
but they played few
goals.
They've played fewer games, though, haven't they, as well? So.
That's true, and the defensive record to be fair, of Blues and Wrexham to only concede 16 goals is pretty solid. So yeah, that's clearly the way Blues are going about their business. Stockport away on New Year's Day, Brian. Stockport are pretty decent at Edgeley Park. 7 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats from their 11 home games, which is the 5th best record at home in League One. I feel like the Louis Barry factor is very interesting going into this game, because obviously now we know that he is going to be recalled by Aston Villa in January, but for whatever reason, they are going to let him play against Birmingham City on New Year's Day. That's going to be his final game. And genuinely, they're obviously going to call him back and potentially sell him, or probably send him out on loan to a Championship club. I've no idea why they're risking him playing one more game for Stockport when he's going to be going somewhere else within a few days.
I mean, no, it's impossible to come up with a theory why they're letting Aston Villa letting him play against Birmingham City, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
He did have 1 or 2 bright moments in the home game, didn't he? When Stockport came to St Andrews, he forced a good save out of Ryan Alsop early on, and I think he's created a chance as well. But in the second half, Blues totally nullified him, so they handled him quite well, I thought. But yeah, he's going to be absolutely. He's going to really want to make an impact on this game, and I would just wonder. I don't know if Blues do necessarily scheme for an opposition, like an individual with an opposition. They probably haven't had to in League One very much. I wonder if they will have a Louis Barry plan just for this one particular game.
Well, in the other game, what was it, 4th of December? Bielik was at right back then, wasn't he? So it was quite clear that Blues didn't want to let him get one-on-one against Bielik. So every time he got the ball, Awata raced over there and did an excellent job in terms of screening as he came inside.
Yeah.
And Awata was fantastic that night and completely cut off the supply to Louis Barry. So maybe that's something that will be done again. It worked once. I don't see why it wouldn't work again. It'll be interesting to see if Bielik does actually play at right back, because Christoph Klara obviously took a knock in the game against Blackpool. So if he's out, you presume that Bielik could play in the middle alongside Ben Davies, and you're probably looking at Ethan Laird for the right back position and Alex Cochrane for the left back position, aren't you?
Yeah. Sure. We go on to the team. Yeah, I would expect Ben Davies to come right back in. Interesting if Klara is fit, whether they do go with Bielik, Klara, and Davies. I suspect they will. And as you say, Cochrane is the natural replacement for the unfortunate Lee Buchanan. And then it's going to be Beck and Awata, isn't it? In midfield again, I would imagine. I'm stopping short of doing the attacking lineup because you can.
Okay, yeah, this is where the problems always come. Obviously, Keshi Anderson went off at half-time against Burton. Chris Davis said it was some fatigue. So whether he can recover for this one, obviously, I suppose there's half a chance. Hopefully he can, because he's been an important player recently. If he's fit, he'll play on the right. If he plays on the right, maybe Willemsen in the 10, Stansfield left, and May up top. I think there's a good case to be made for playing Mark Leonard as the 10, though. I think Leonard's been really good as a 10 when he's come on recently. And if you play Willemsen right and you've got Laird at fullback, then it kind of gives the team that balance, doesn't it? Because Willemsen can naturally come inside. Cochrane will naturally, can play the position where he tucks inside as a third centre-back, and Laird can obviously bomb on, as he did at the start of the season. Then you could have Anderson left wing, Leonard in the middle to support Beck and Awata, and you could play Stansfield up front. If Anderson is fit, my hunch is that it will be Anderson right, Willemsen in the middle, Jay Stansfield left, and May up top, because that's been the most productive front four for Blues this season. So why wouldn't he get them? Yeah, why wouldn't he get them all in the field at the same time?
Yeah, I think so. And Anderson is the key key component here, isn't he?
Mm.
I think if you are looking to release a fullback to play with to give the width and get balls in, I'm personally more comfortable if that's Cochrane. I think Cochrane gets a better ball in than Laird at the moment. So potentially be looking at Bielik at right back in that scenario, and Cochrane is the one going forward. But that obviously leaves you looking for width on the right. But yeah, my prediction is that it would be if Anderson's fit, it would be Anderson, Willemsen, and Stansfield as in the three, and May up top. I think that's the most likely way to go.
Yeah. If Anderson isn't fit, who do you think we should play right wing? I think it'll be a case of playing Willemsen there and switching the system a little bit, or
I think that's what. Yeah, I think they'd probably pull Willemsen over onto that side. I suppose Luke Harris is another option there, isn't he? We've seen that, and we know Davis likes him. Probably Willemsen, who not been fab lately, has he? A lot of his touches have been passing backwards and of late. Just keeping the ball ticking over and recycling. And I wonder if we want the number 10, if that's what he is, or that inside right position. I wonder if we want that player to get turned more often and to face the opposition goal and to been threading passes through and having shots. Just a little bit underwhelmed at the moment for me. Is that fair or not?
No, I think so. He had a bit of a dip in December, hasn't he? I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And before the Shrewsbury game, I thought he was one of Blue's main players. Actually, he was in a really, really good run of form. I'm not saying he's playing bad. He's played badly for the whole of December. But I think particularly since the Bristol Rovers game, since he came back from illness, really, I just think he's not been as on it. He obviously had his moments against Burton Albion and played a key role in that second goal, but he's not quite been the Willemsen that we saw, between October and November, I would say. But yeah,
playing a lot of minutes, though, isn't he? He really is.
He is.
Of all the guys that have come in from overseas, he's probably the one that has played the most minutes, it feels like, and it'll be something he'll be getting used to, because he spoke to you about having to play over Christmas, didn't he, and the sort of frequency of games.
Yeah, for the first time, obviously he's played in countries, Holland, Belarus, Iceland, where they traditionally don't play games over Christmas. That's obviously very much an England thing. So yeah, maybe it is something new to him, and maybe he's just having to adapt and obviously manage himself and his own body through this period to make sure he gets through unscathed. So yeah, I'm sure he'll pick up in the new year. Brian, do we think Blues will pick up 3 points in the new year at Stockport?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I do as well.
I expect them to win every game. Yeah, I absolutely do. I've beaten Stockport once. I actually think they're a really good away team. The away record is fantastic, isn't it? So yeah, totally do. I think it'll be a good start to 2025.
I agree. Lovely. That's a nice way to finish, Brian. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to everyone who has listened. Please hit subscribe, leave a comment. We'll try and get round to any points in future episodes. We will be back later in the week, I think, at some stage probably. Don't hold us to that. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and a massive keep right on from both of us.